South Sudanese Vice President and opposition leader Riek Machar leaves the country. An Africa 54 exclusive. Bill Gates on his foundation's global fight to end polio. And how an army of hungry ducks is keeping a South African vineyard pest-free. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. We begin in North Africa, where the tug of war between Libyan forces and Islamic State militants has taken a major turn. Libyan forces say they have taken one of the last districts in central Sirte held by Islamic State. The forces, allied with Libya's UN-backed government in Tripoli, are battling snipers and car bombs in their fight to recapture the entire city. Now, 3 months into a campaign to oust Islamic State from their former North African stronghold, Libyan troops have now encircled the terrorists in a shrinking section of the city center. Since early August, progress has been aided by U.S. airstrikes on Islamic State vehicles, weapons and fighting positions. The U.S. Africa Command says it has carried out a total of 48 airstrikes as of last Sunday. The Libyan forces are composed mainly of brigades from the western city of Misrata. Now, for more on the threat of ISIS, I'm joined by Jason Pack, founder of Eye on ISIS in Libya. Welcome back to Africa 54, Jason.
Nice to be here.
Now, everybody, you would imagine, would be excited. ISIS is being kicked out of Sirte. Question is, where does ISIS go when they get scattered?
Well, this is a major development, and it obviously is positive when ISIS is denied its third capital after Raqqa and Mosul in Syria and Iraq. But the ISIS fighters don't need territoriality and the controlling of territory to conduct attacks and to spread their ideology. Territory does help.
Yeah.
It allows them to raise taxes on the population, to import goods, to set up schools and train young people. So it's great to deny them that in Sirte. And I think Sirte will become less important for them as an escape hatch from the Middle East. So rather than defeating ISIS in Libya, which hasn't happened, Sirte's ability to be a point of refuge for defeated fighters in Syria and Iraq is now over. But where will those defeated fighters from Sirte go?
That's a big question.
I assume that they will go into the southern deserts of Libya or to African countries such as Niger and Mali, just as they did when the revolution in 2011 against Gaddafi forced many Islamist fighters and Tuareg militants to go from Libya to Mali.
So when they go down, of course, that's a big threat to the entire continent. The question is, what can be done to stop them from advancing southward?
Well, as you're well aware, the borders in the African continent are quite porous. Anyone can walk from Sudan to Libya, and this is a huge border. For example, the border between Chad and Libya. I'm not sure what can be done because the Chadian government lacks the resources to patrol that border. I think that what could have been done would have been to encircle Sirte via, one, a naval blockade, and two, pinning the fighters in by controlling the roads before attacking. They didn't do that, and a lot of these fighters have escaped.
So you sound like you're saying you have to literally eliminate every one of them to say you've succeeded.
It's not politically correct, but frankly, we're not fighting a group. We're fighting individual jihadi fighters because these fighters could rebrand themselves, function as Ansar al-Sharia, coordinate lone wolf attacks, or, even carry out the internet jihad, which is the propagation of their ideology in ways that appeal to people in Europe and the United States. And frankly, to defeat these fighters, you have to defeat them, and that's on a one-to-one level.
And there has been a lot of debate, even at the presidential campaign level, about should there be boots on the ground in some of these neighborhoods. The U.S. has helped a lot in Libya, from the airstrikes. But then with that kind of, success, it means like the strategy will have to change. There have to be guys on the ground. Is that, from your perspective, the best way?
I don't believe in a boots-on-the-ground approach. I think the phasing of Western support to Libya has been incorrect. We have focused on the military and counter-terror angle first, and we're doing the political angle second. So that means that a genuine anti-ISIS coalition has never arisen. I would have rather it the other way, a real focus on the political, getting the Eastern General Haftar to work together with the Misratans, to work together with the Federalists, and then attacking the Islamic State. What we did is we attacked the Islamic State first. When they got bogged down, then we had U.S. airstrikes, and now we have some U.S. special ops, and then they're going to try to have a political process later. That's not the approach that I would favor. Also, it's important for the Libyans to see this as their victory. And that's why I didn't support, just 1 or 2 U.S. airstrikes that hit very small targets like, one building, or they hit a tank. That, to me, is not worth the political cost. I'd rather have just helped the Libyans win this battle themselves, so then they have the sense of responsibility that, wow, when we work together, we not only can defeat the Islamic State, but we can run our own country. And I think, unfortunately, misphased Western help has taken away the sense that this is a genuinely Libyan victory. So just at this moment that ISIS is being evicted from Sirte, the larger Libyan political process and the government of national accord is falling apart. Kind of paradoxical.
Which means there could be, a return at some point in a moment of weakness. But the question is, can there be a preemptive action on the African front of like a buffer zone to prevent so many of these fighters from advancing?
This is a really great question.
Yeah.
I think that the French are thinking along those lines. They've long had special forces in Chad and in the southern part of Libya called Fezzan. I don't know what's set up, so I can't speak authoritatively about what's being done. But I like the idea of French forces working with the Nigerian and Chadian militaries to pick off these fighters as they try to circle down. Is that happening? Probably. How effective is it? I'm not sure. But you have to be doing this with the local people. If you have some French special ops, they can't win this fight. You need the Libyan people or the Chadian people to say, this is our fight. We want our country to be safe. We want our country to be unified. We don't want these jihadis to be recruiting in our towns. They need to be engaged.
Indeed. And we hope, that will be that kind of a strategy, and I hope it will work. Thanks a lot, Jason, for joining us
Always
today
a pleasure.
once again. Well, Jason Pack is the founder of Eye on ISIS in Libya. Now, in yet another political twist in South Sudan, former Vice President and opposition leader Riek Machar has left the country. His spokesman, James Gadedak, said Thursday that Machar had gone to a neighboring state but would not identify which country. Gadedak says Machar left to escape government forces who were pursuing him since he withdrew from the capital during fierce fighting over a month ago. He also wants to ensure he has better media access to explain his position publicly. The spokesman added that Machar had sustained a leg injury from weeks of walking in the bush, but not serious enough to require medical attention. The renewed fighting in the 5-year-old nation has raised fears of a slide back into civil war. Well, in East Africa, young people in the Kenyan coastal town of Mombasa have been increasingly turning to drugs, especially cannabis, cocaine, and heroin. The climbing usage is visibly affecting lives of youths. VOA's Tony Onyulo spent time with the youths, and here is what he found out.
In Bombolulu, Mombasa youths meet for their daily dose of heroin and cocaine. 28-year-old Gladys says she did not know what she was getting into when she first started using the drugs.
I don't like using drugs, but I'm forced to use them. Drugs are my husband, so when I use heroin, cannabis, and cocaine, it makes me go high, and I feel I have a husband.
Gladys regularly inhales, sometimes injects herself in order to avoid the track marks that would make her addiction obvious. Pure heroin is the main narcotic sold in every corner of the streets of Mombasa. The drug is smoked or snorted, but most addicts like Gladys prefer injecting.
Injecting drugs makes you feel good, but I also inhale and smoke every drug. I don't care anymore about my health. I have so many problems that make me do all this.
Kevin Olo is another addict.
When you stop using drugs, you get so scared. You think you're going to die. I've been using drugs for the last 10 years.
Most analysts believe the proximity to the seashore and entry port that connect the region to major international trade routes makes Mombasa a destination for narcotic, especially heroin from Southeast Asia.
The area is so vulnerable to this kind of trade. The president recently blew up a yacht that had been seized in the ocean while smuggling heroin.
Mombasa is Kenya's second largest city and East Africa's largest port. Over the past 6 years, the city has rapidly evolved into a major international heroin transit hub, with up to 40 tons of the narcotic flowing into Mombasa every year, according to the UN Drug and Crime Report. Findings from the report shows that more than 18,000 Kenyans regularly inject heroin, with almost half of them in Mombasa. Regional Police Commander Nelson Marwa said the rate of youths using drugs was alarming and appealed to leaders and stakeholders in the region to be engaged in the crackdown.
What kind of this wealth where you kill people through drug to be rich? Don't go into the deep waters to fish drug in the name of fish, right? Yeah, this is the position the government, and I'm saying this for everybody to hear. If you are caught there in the international waters pretending to fish when you are fishing drug, the law will deal with you head on, no matter who the hell you are, my brother.
Tony Onyulo for Voice of America in Mombasa, Kenya.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Now, coming up in a VOA exclusive interview, Bill Gates talks about Nigeria's polio setbacks and future plans to eradicate the disease. Stay with us.
Science and technology, here's what's new.
They're called Fab Labs, digital workshops opening in various places in Africa, including one for kids in Ivory Coast. In this lab in Abidjan, kids are learning to use open source software to build electronic devices, some of which are made using discarded computer and electronic components, what they call e-waste. Oben Jaco is the lab's co-founder.
Digital technology is still reserved for the elite. We think it belongs to everyone.
12-year-old Awa Traore had no computer at home when she walked into the lab last year.
I learned to create my own website using HTML. I learned electronic music. I want to be an IT engineer and teach children electronic music everywhere in the world.
Fab Labs are also in Burkina Faso, Togo, Mali, and Senegal. For VOA's What's New, I'm Todd Grossarms.
Welcome back. I'm Lenore Moudou. In today's health report, I had an opportunity to speak exclusively with Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft, and along with his wife Melinda, co-founders of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, about the organization's polio initiatives in Africa and elsewhere. First, I asked his reaction to the latest polio outbreak in Nigeria.
Well, it was very exciting that we went 2 years without any cases, and the idea that there's this area up in the northeast of Nigeria around Lake Chad where we found these 2 cases, that's a disappointment. We were engaged in a very aggressive effort to get vaccines out to as many children as possible in that area and get the number back down to 0. We're quite optimistic we can do that, but we're really trying to understand how we do better surveillance so we don't have a pocket like this in the future.
So in light of this development, and when we look at the big picture, it is one thing to interrupt transmission. It is another thing to stay polio-free. So how does Africa sustain the hard-won gains in keeping polio at bay to be declared polio-free one day, really?
Well, the good news is that the intensity of the campaigns has been maintained. Nigeria, at one point, was over half the cases in the world, and many people said to us, can you really succeed in Nigeria? If we go and look at the level of immunization, even up in the north where the health systems are more challenging, we've got that at quite a high level. So if we can get rid of this pocket, then it'll cement the change. In parallel, we're still working in Pakistan and Afghanistan. And so we feel really good about where we are despite this setback. We've got a great team up there. The government's working with us. We need to access kids, and we need for people to understand the importance of getting all the kids to take this oral polio vaccine.
And you mentioned Pakistan and Afghanistan. So could you elaborate a little more on what the foundation is doing in these two countries that are still endemic? And also a country like Ukraine that witnessed an outbreak last September.
Yeah, fortunately, the Ukraine thing looks like it's under control. So both in Nigeria and in Pakistan, Afghanistan, our main challenge is that we have kids who the vaccinators have a tough time finding, and reaching those kids in an insecure environment can be very complex. And so we really need to understand where the kids are. We need teams that are very competent going out with these vaccines. And then the numbers have come down in Pakistan and Afghanistan. So far this year, we've had 19 cases. So even adding the 2 that we just found in Nigeria, this is by far the lowest year of polio cases ever. And we're getting smarter all the time about how we find the villages, how we reach out to the traditional leaders. Obviously, we're going to need great partnership with the governments in the region, particularly up in the northeast in Borno.
Now, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has supported the campaign for a polio-free world with about $3.5 billion at least. What do you perceive as the organization's biggest accomplishments in eradicating polio?
Well, when this all started, it goes all the way back to 1988, there was a commitment to show that eradication can be done. So having success here is important not just for polio, which is literally reducing millions of kids that would have been paralyzed, but also for building better health systems and showing us how to go after future eradications. So we're very gratified that the case numbers have come down. We've had great partnerships. Although our foundation is a big funder, we have many other very generous funders who've been our partners, and even now as we're facing this new challenge, they're stepping up and asking how they can help out. So we're optimistic that this will become a model, just like smallpox, which is a long time ago, became a model and really drove a lot of new great work in global health.
And be sure to join us Friday when we'll air part 2 of my exclusive interview with Bill Gates on his foundation's initiatives to help eradicate polio and improve global health. And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter at Lenore Moudou. Back to you, Vincent.
Well, thanks a lot, Lenore. Now, an African success story. When a young woman left her home in the United States and returned to a post-war Liberia to start a business, it's far from easy. But now she is a busy entrepreneur selling African print designs locally and abroad. VOA's Caroline Turner has more.
After 20 years of living in the United States, 37-year-old Tiana Sherman Kesley returned to Liberia and started a business making and selling clothes. Markets in the capital city, Monrovia, provide fairly priced, vibrant African print fabric, and Tiana already had an eye for fashion. But it took more than access to raw material and skill to build her business in a country that suffered through 14 years of civil war. When she came back in 2010, she found her grandmother's house riddled in bullet holes. The economy was slowly recovering since the war ended in 2003, but there was no access to electricity, so she had to run a generator on most days.
This was actually a burnt-out building. Wires were hanging. There was no electrical wire, no plumbing. We knocked down walls. So it took a significant amount of investment. And I think that has kind of, because I've made that investment, that has kind of kept me focused to make sure that I recoup it, so to speak, and help to ensure that I take this very seriously.
Through savings and income from consulting, Tiana raised $20,000 US to invest in Afropolitan Boutique, a business her friends and family said would fail. Tiana produces contemporary African print clothing and accessories to sell at her store in Monrovia and online to clients around the world. She also showcases other local designers at her shop.
It was formed out of a need, is what I would say. I saw an opportunity in a need that I had initially. I had moved back from the States, and I loved shopping and doing wearing African prints. And after a few occasions of shopping on the street and going down Waterside, I thought that it would be a good opportunity, or it was an opportunity to have a nice space for people to be able to try on clothes, to shop comfortably, to not have to barter on your prices. And it also was an opportunity for me to show people that Liberians could set up a nice establishment.
Business was booming until the Ebola outbreak battered Liberia for 2 years. The disease killed 4,800 people in Liberia and a total of 11,000 people in West Africa. The World Health Organization declared Liberia free of the virus in June, but analysts say it will take at least 2 years for the country to regain its economic footing.
Over the years, business has kind of ebbed and flows. We had the Ebola challenge, and that basically brought business, of course, to a halt. And since then, the economy has been recovering.
Tiana says she is playing her role. She has grown her staff from 4 to 10 and awards part-time contracts to other tailors when it gets busy.
I feel too proud of myself coming here to work, all out there, not doing anything, you know, more especially as a female. I feel proud of myself. I feel good to work with her.
Tiana says she has over 2,000 clients locally and internationally buying made-to-order designs.
I always tell my friends that they are more than welcome. They laugh at me because I tell them that I'm recruiting. So I tell people it's a family post. I have 2 kids that are here raising my family, and so I always say that come on home and help make an impact. You know, it's not something that one person can do. It takes a team.
Tiana is reaching out to more Liberians to come back home and help grow the economy and create jobs. Carolyn Turner, VOA News, Washington.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, as South African vineyards and user pest patrol. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Mali, one protester shot dead and others injured by police in Bamako at a protest yesterday over the arrest of a talk show host critical of the government. In the DRC, working with the World Health Organization, the country begins an emergency vaccination campaign after a deadly outbreak of yellow fever. In South Sudan, newly appointed Vice President Tabang Dengai is merging the government and rebel forces in an attempt to end violence in the country. In Guinea, at least one person is dead and many more were injured on Tuesday at an opposition demonstration that got violent in the capital, Conakry. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. The reopening of the World Trade Center Mall in New York is set to transform shopping in Manhattan. Shops from Apple to Dior will serve an increasingly diverse group of residents, in addition to Wall Street bankers. But they will also be catering to tourists who come to visit the National September 11 Memorial and Museum. 15 million travelers are expected to visit the area from the U.S. and around the world next year to see the memorial and nearby places. Well, next up, beachgoers in northeastern Spain have a new lifeguard, and here it is, a float-equipped drone. Several coastal villages in Spain are testing drones for beach rescue operations. The drone allows for long-distance operations where the pilot may not have the person in trouble in direct sight. The drone goes into action the moment a distress call is sounded. It heads directly to the person in danger and provides live images to help lifeguards and rescue operators make decisions about the rescue. Well, and finally, is this the most eco-friendly way to wipe out pests? It's rush hour at the Vagenoord wine estate in Stellenbosch, South Africa. This Indian runner decks are about to start their morning commute to work. They've been enlisted as an environmentally friendly method of pest control to keep the vineyards free from snails, worms, and other edible pests. The wine estate has been using ducks as pest control for many years, but recently increased the numbers. Apart from pest control, the birds also produce fertilizer for the vines. And that is what is trending today. Now, Malawi continues to grapple with the aftermath of severe drought and flooding during the past year that has left over 6 million people in need of food aid. Now, small home vegetable gardens are cropping up around the capital thanks to a new initiative called the Victory Garden Campaign. Lamek Masina has the story from Lilongwe.
Edson Kumbani, a villager in the Likuni area of the capital, created this garden after last year's maize harvest failed. Like most farmers in Malawi, his family has long relied on maize as its main source of food. But now he grows tomatoes, sweet potatoes, mustard, cassava, pumpkin and beans. His wife helps.
Now I have even stopped asking my husband about food whenever he leaves the house. I just enter the garden and pick whatever food I need for the family and cook it.
Kumbani started his garden with the help from an anti-hunger initiative by the US-based charity Face to Face.
What we want to do is roll out our solution, our Victory Garden solution, our solution of changing the way that Malawians think about farming and thinking about food, so that Malawi can break the cycle of poverty and end the continuing hunger that always seems to plague this country.
About 22,000 families in Likuni, Sabango and Mitundu areas are benefiting from the campaign. Each person that gets the training teaches 25 other people.
We teach them that for any family to be healthy, it should first of all have enough food to achieve that. They should have enough manure for the garden, and we also encourage them to plant fruit trees.
The initiative chose plants that can get by on less water. The drought is not over in Malawi, and some villagers still have to walk a long way to get water. Despite the challenge, the seeds of change are being planted. Lamek Masina for VOA News, Lilongwe.
Well, that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC. That's Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us here in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Okay, you probably know what being married to someone means. But is this expression really about marriage?
Not married. Anna, I know I agreed to name our rock band the English Teachers, but now I'm not so sure.
That's okay. I was never married to that name anyway.
Good. I thought you'd be upset.
Oh, no way, man. I thought we could call ourselves the Rockin' English Teachers.
To use not married this way means you are not attached or committed to something. You don't care about it. This expression is commonly used in the negative form. One of the only times we use it in the positive form is when we talk about work. And that's English in a Minute.